Welcome back to our daily show as 2024 is coming to a close and 2025 right around the corner. Senator Erica Harris joins us now, taking a little bit of a look back on the year that was 2024, a little bit of a busier one for you, and then obviously a look ahead at 2025. But Senator Harris, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Yeah, thanks so much for having me, especially during such a busy time of year.
Well, and we really appreciate it here too, because especially, now that maybe things hopefully for some families start to slow down with the kids at home a little bit, or they ramp up depending on how that household functions. It's always good for folks to have these conversations and to be a little bit more informed on, maybe how their area is looking, going ahead into that next year. But right off the bat, how was 2024 just in a nutshell for you?
2024 was awesome for me. As you know, it was my second year in office, so I'm still in my first term, still learning so much, but having had 1 year under my belt, I felt like I was not so much drinking from a fire hose, but really able to say, okay, here's how Springfield works, here's what we need to do. And really, we had a great, effective year number two. It continues to be an honor to be able to represent people in our district. So it's great being in Springfield, but I love being back in the district and just getting to connect with people and groups and organizations and hear what's important to you.
Well, and honestly, that's more and more of that conversation is coming into play just on a national side of things, but also here, regionally and locally, is just the transitionary period, of really understanding the role. And if you don't mind me asking, was there somebody on your team or anyone that you reflected onto in the House or on the Senate side of things that maybe helped you kind of streamline your transition into feeling as comfortable as you have been this year?
There's so many. If you ask me to name someone, I will miss someone. But I will tell you this Thanksgiving, I did sit down and send out some personal texts because, and this is, across the board, people have just been so overwhelmingly helpful when I would go and say, how does this work? Or I'm looking to try and make this happen. How can we get this across the finish line kind of thing? In general, everyone is really willing to be super helpful, especially down here in the Metro East. And, we've got such a great tight-knit community. And so that's, I think, very helpful as well.
Well, and during the course of just, it seems like 18 years ago was the general election in November, but Madison County, in the district kind of overwhelmingly, or not overwhelmingly, but at least a very good majority said, hey, we want to make sure that, Cook County knows we aren't too happy with the way that the procedures are going and their estimation. And going forward, what is on your, platform and your palette to make sure that, maybe some of those folks that don't feel as, represented by the entire state government, not necessarily from what you or another local representative or senator does. What are you looking to do to make sure that their voices are at least heard, or that the governor's office and those folks in the Senate and House side of things understand that there's some serious, trust issues that are developing down here?
I think that ballot initiative that you speak of obviously passed very overwhelmingly. I think that sent more of a message than anything. Right. The reality of that happening is
very dim. Yeah.
But it sent a message. And I do think that was indicative of what voters are thinking or feeling. Mm-hmm. I personally have had a few pieces of legislation that, one being a property tax freeze for seniors. The amounts are different up in Cook County than they are down here. And so trying to get that across the finish line of just saying people in the Metro East would like to be, not treated disparagingly or different. Right. And we would like some of the same numbers to be on that. So we'll try again to get that one. I'm refiling that bill. But yeah, there are definite differences. We are a little more rural. And I think that's why it's so important for people who are representing districts not just spend so much time in the legislative process, but you have to spend time going to events and meeting with other leaders. One thing I did do when I started 2 years ago was started a mayor's roundtable event. And so that was just a way that all the mayors in the district, they're invited to come and we all sit down together and get to hear what's happening. I tell them what's happening in Springfield. They tell me what's happening in their communities. And that has been really helpful to me to help advocate for them. Because sometimes without sitting down and having those conversations, you just wouldn't know. And, every time I tell them this is good for me, but I hope it's good for you too, that we all have this opportunity to sit down and collaborate.
Well, there's on two sides of that, really, with what you just said. It's so important to know that, because a lot of times I think there's so much local municipal frustration because of, maybe someone's interpretation of a mayor. Doesn't matter what town, village, city you're representing, but they go, well, why isn't this getting done? And that's because you got to go through a different level of legislator, because maybe it's a state project, or maybe it has, something that needs to be reworked from a broader scale. And to know that you're actively working with those towns really does put a finger on the pulse. And I think it's really important. And I also think it's important to know that, just going back on that ballot referendum, like you said, grand scheme of things, it's probably not going to change the world, and we aren't going to be, New Illinois tomorrow. But it's a good, sense of, hey, there's some folks that are frustrated. And it's good to know that, you're here to try to, make it equal in some ways with that bill of property tax, and saying, hey, we're just as equal as, the folks in Cook County and seniors freezing that tax rate. With that being said, Senator Harris, I do want to ask you about some of the local stuff you did, because it is important. Rusty Wheat's been on the show time and time again, and talking as loudly as he can, too, loudly as he can about the trash issue and the litter issue coming off from, certain trucking companies. And you were able to work with, him and other local leaders and also county leaders to really get a really nice bill put across. Can we talk about that a little bit more? Because that really should be talked about more.
And this is a perfect, really local example of, as just an individual and citizen driving around the community, I would notice the trash, right? But when he made an appointment to come in and talk with me about it, and I could see how passionate he really was about the issue. This is, an individual citizen that is volunteering his many days of the week, actually, to just be out around the community picking up trash. We hear a lot of complaints, but don't always see people taking action to do something about it. And so it is very impressive, the action that he's taken to do something about it, and really just his advocacy on that issue. And so, as we were introduced a few years back, and he was sharing about the trash issue. And so I began sharing with other legislators, what can we do about this? What are you doing in your communities? And really out of that, we had, 2 bills come about. Those 2 bills were passed this last session and were signed by the governor, and will hopefully begin to make somewhat of a difference of the trash we're seeing on the side of the road, and hopefully will be less of it. So
100%. And wanted to circle back real quick before we touch on the lame duck session, and then a little bit of 2025, and also the Women in Technology Task Force. I wanted to talk just a little bit about some of the conversations you have with some of the local mayors, because not necessarily on specific details, but it just seems like after all the city leaders we've had on this show and numerous regional leaders, that a lot of towns really have the same issues. Now, they have a different aesthetical way to maybe get there, maybe their final project and what it looks like and what they feel like. But just from talking with you and talking with local mayors, are they really the same issues? Does it come down to really core issues that kind of just maybe expand a little bit differently? Because to me, it just seems like a lot of towns are really going through very similar situations.
In our 56 district, infrastructure continues to be a major issue, along with utilities. So infrastructure itself, which we have been super fortunate and have gotten some federal assistance with that as well coming down the pipeline. So very, very glad to hear about that. And that would be a good example actually of where meeting with these mayors, they are saying, hey, we are a veteran community. We don't have necessarily the business tax base to have the budget to do some of these multi-million-dollar projects. And we've been able to, when we're talking with our federal representatives, share those types of concerns and needs in the district, and again, be another voice for the communities. So happy to report that we are getting some federal funding coming down the pipeline for that as well.
Wow.
So that is a constant issue. And then people are just struggling in general, especially that the weather has turned cold, energy prices are soaring, and that remains public utilities and what people are having to pay for those remains a stressor for people in our community.
I could only imagine, especially, with all these new, letters that come out with aggregation programs. Is it really right for us? Is the parent company of Ameren's rate, the best? And those are a lot of things that consumers take in, and to know that too, there's, legislative, a look at it at least to say, hey, how can we keep these rates down for folks? How can we get them lower? And a lot of people are really looking for that answer. It's great to know that too. Getting back really to just something that's so important for this area too, with a little bit of what Alton Works has been wanting to do, I know, is with the main, Midwest AI network. We had Emily come on the show from the Wedge and talk about that, and also talk about technology just in general. But you also were named to the Women in Technology Task Force, and this is a really big opportunity for you.
It is. It is a great opportunity to have a voice down here from Southern Illinois. And as you mentioned, we have investment happening at the Wedge. And so I think that will be a great opportunity for different items to work kind of in tandem and simultaneously, and hopefully all come together in a great marriage of success for our community.
Well, and, I think that's something, too, is whenever we're, talking with, senators and representatives, and, even have, Governor Pritzker sometimes making his way down here, how important is it to have just spotlights on these prospective towns that are in your district, and being a part of that and having Southwest Illinois on the map? Because, like you said, it felt like, we weren't really getting those looks. And now to be in conversations where you're maybe at least helping, or at least keeping the conversation going for local mayors, that's really invaluable when it comes to being noticed, because it's hard to get help when they don't know you're there.
Right. So obviously super important. We know that technology is likely to increase, not decrease, right? If you're going to be a gambling person, that's a pretty much a given. So
now what are the lottery numbers? No.
That is one sector where investing and investment, I think, is only going to be beneficial. And another part of this aspect is we have some of our colleges and community colleges, and even high schools in the area are shifting a little bit of their focus, knowing that this is the future and what our jobs going to look like in 10 and 15 years. And so they're a big part of the picture too. So it's so much more than just, if we build it, they will come, but we also need to, get that pipeline with young workers.
Well, and, I know it's outside of your district. Well, I shouldn't say I know, because every time I know I'm wrong, but I assume it's outside of your district in Jerseyville. But it has the same geography, I'm sure, of some of your, towns that you do cover in those regions, is that, even as young as kindergarten students learning how to use drones for agricultural purposes and all of these things. That's why I think your position on this task force is very unique, because you're representing a district that incorporates all aspects of Illinois life, from rural, municipal to suburban. I mean, you have that pulse.
Yes. And so in this task force, what we'll do is we'll meet for the next year and then do research, study, collect data. Then we'll put together a list of recommendations that will guide and support future state policies. Wow. So I'm so excited to be able to be on the ground level for this. And, again, obviously always being an advocate for Southern Illinois here. Well,
and with that being said, with 2024 coming to a close, and folks already looking forward towards next year, what's this lame duck session look like? I know we're going to have a new General Assembly coming in just a couple of weeks now. What's that look like for you? What is your what's the next couple of weeks look like for Senator Harris?
So we are going back to Springfield on the 4th of January, which is a Saturday. I
don't mean to laugh. At least I'll be in bed.
Yeah, it is the most random schedule. So definitely not a 9 to 5 job here, but that's okay. So I signed up for it, and it's such a great honor. Now, the last lame duck session took place in January of 2023, right before I was sworn in. So remember, lame duck is when you have your election in November. Some people are voted out. So this is a time period where sometimes more controversial bills will come through, because you'll have people that are no longer going to be in office. And so there's really not that accountability back to constituents at home, because they're on their way out. So in that January 2023 session, there was a weapons ban and an expansion of abortion services that passed. 2021 is the one that probably most people remember. It got a little bit more attention. That was the Safety Act passed in the middle of the night.
How important is it to be vigilant for that, to make sure that there's nothing, if something is getting pushed through, or you hear of something, to really kind of be on your toes? Because I know that there's only so much that, one person can do in this role, but it seems like it's almost one of those things where you have to be kind of focused on what's getting talked about, what's getting brought to the table. Am I onto something here?
Yeah, we haven't seen really a whole lot yet. We are hearing that there might be an energy type of bill. So haven't seen that yet, language on that yet anyway. But I imagine on the 4th, all those will get read into the record, or there might be some type of amendment on something that's already out there from the 103rd General Assembly.
Really cool. Well, and it's fascinating to know that, too. And thank you for bringing up some of those things with the Safety Act. I didn't realize the 2011 bill that went through, but it's good to know that. And now, as you're kind of learning your role here a little bit more, as the years start to roll through and you're looking into 2025, in this lame duck, is there anything that you're kind of just keeping wary of? Is there anything that you got your eyes on that, you want us to be informed about? I don't know that for sure, folks at home. I'm just asking that as a generalized question.
We are getting calls about an assisted suicide bill, like an end of life type of bill. So that's something I'm keeping an eye on. I don't know that will happen in lame duck, but that is something that has been discussed and talked about. So I haven't seen anything come through committee on that, but there will always be rumors, and there is some language out there as well.
And, Senator Harris, thank you so much for your time, and always enjoy really talking with you and really keeping us informed, because, I figured it's like, what do we really talk about in this kind of dead part of winter? But there really is so much to kind of reflect on. And you've come on the show a couple of times this year. And, before I let you go, what's your kind of final message to your constituents as this calendar year comes to a close?
Hope you have a great holiday season. Merry Christmas. Enjoy spending time with your family. I know we at my house baked cookies this last week and had way too much sugar. But really, the big message is I want to be the best representative I can for you. And so to do that, communication's so key. I do have a newsletter. So if you get on our website and subscribe to that, we're trying to keep everyone updated with what's happening. Call the office anytime. We would love to help you with state issues. If it's not a state issue, we're happy to try and send you in the right direction as well, or use our connections to send you in the right place. So get your help. We don't want government to be frustrating.
Absolutely. And, really appreciate that too. And thanks for always being open to coming on the show and just filling us in and keeping us informed. Always great to hear from our elected officials. And Senator Erica Harris, before I let you go, get that property levy tax phrase back to where it needs to be, huh? We'll take a quick break here in the heart of the 618 as our daily show continues to roll around the corner this morning. More comes your way right after this.